Bitcoin's down 30% from its $126,000 peak a couple months ago. AI is advancing at a crazy speed right now. Gemini's new Nano Banana just came out. We've been playing around with it, and it's insane. And Elon Musk was in Saudi earlier this week saying humanoids and AI will allow for abundance for everyone. Money won't matter, which I think we disagree with. But I want to start with Bitcoin's price action. Where do you think it's headed right now? And are we entering like a prolonged bear market, or is this just a flash crash when we back up to new all-time highs 2026?
I guess in the short time frame, it's really hard to figure it out. It reminds me of Amazon.com when it first started really trading. It got paid. I was paying attention to it in the early 2000s. You knew Amazon was up to some interesting stuff. But at the same time, as the narrative of Amazon was like, wow, look at this company selling books online. Look how it's distributing these books all over North America. And then it turned on more and more countries around the world. The stock was just kind of like, it was scattered. It would go up and then it would kind of crash back down, and people would look at the income statement of Amazon and say, oh my gosh, they're losing money, not realizing that they were putting all the money into the company to grow it. Stock would go up a little bit, but then it would crash back down. And then now, whatever it is, 25 years later, Amazon is globally dominant. The stock did really well. And Bitcoin, to me, it reminds me of something that's new in its adolescent phase, and that's just not a mature market. Even though it's a true $2 trillion market cap, it still has a lot of people just buying it for price action, not really knowing what they sell. They get scared if there's some FUD that the banking system's not going to work with it. Then they quickly sell it. You got leveraged players who seem to get thrown and whipshot all over the place, and then they're forced to sell because they were using so much leverage. So Bitcoin just reminds me of like early tech, in that you know it's going higher in the medium and long term, but in the short term, it just swings wildly. And unless you have conviction that you want to own pure digital scarcity in a world that Elon Musk is saying is going to have more and more abundance, if you want to own the only scarce thing that we can really look at that is purely scarce in the digital world, you want to own Bitcoin. So to me, nothing's really changed. But in the short term, leveraged buyers, momentum traders, it all kind of whips around a little bit and it freaks everybody out.
Totally. And just yesterday, I guess there was an article, I think it was Maryland Hoddle on Twitter, was just talking about Trump and the Treasury kind of against the Federal Reserve and JP Morgan and the big banks, and just the whole macro environment's nuts on a global scale and then also internally inside the US. What do you think's happening there, and why is Trump and the Treasury fighting JP Morgan and these central banks like the Federal Reserve?
Yeah, well, these are big questions. So I think there's two aspects going on. The fight between the Treasury and kind of the central banking system and the Federal Reserve that's happening, and then the fight between the central banking system and the global control of the monetary network. So if we take the latter first, central banks are not happy that Bitcoin is creating a network that can move monetary value around the world without their control. So the central banking system naturally, and one of the big players in the central banking system would be a player like JP Morgan, doesn't really like that they don't have full control over things like the SWIFT system that has been used to wire money all around the world for big monetary movements around the world. Most people, most countries, sovereign nations were using SWIFT. You have this little emerging network that is getting more and more powerful by the day called Bitcoin, and they can't control it. They can't stop anybody from using it. It's permissionless and open. They can't hack into it. It's purely secure. They don't like this thing. Before they ignored it. Now it feels like they're fighting it.
Totally. And it also feels like the same almost in the short term here with stablecoins. Like the Trump admin is allowing like the Genius Act and stablecoins to, like, private companies can create their own stablecoins. They have to follow the U.S. regulations, but that also takes power away from the banking system.
Yeah, totally. So that's the second layer of what's happening. So the Trump administration is looking and saying, I think, how can we save the US dollar and its role in the global reserve currency? Can we keep it as a currency? Maybe it's going to lose status as a global reserve asset, but can it be the main currency that people use? And the strategy they're looking to use is stable coins, like you just mentioned. And again, I think the banking establishment is like, wait a second, we don't really like that. We're the ones who've controlled all these dollars that go into existence. We're the ones who control the euro dollar market. We control the North American dollar market. we don't like the fact that you're talking stable coins, and the Trump administration is in this like little battle trying to wrestle control away from the banking system, say, yes, we are going to put stable coins into action. You can use them and play with them in the banking system, but you no longer have sole control. So I think there's multiple big trends all converging around the banking
Totally.
system.
And I think as the US debt just becomes less attractive across the world for other sovereigns to purchase, stablecoins is great because all these companies, when someone in Africa buys a stablecoin, the stablecoin company then goes and buys $1 of US Treasury. So I think now they're in the top 10 purchasers of US Treasuries, I think like short-term T-bills in the entire world, which is nuts. And I think which is why Trump and the administration wants these stablecoins to stay around and grow because they need buyers for their debt.
Yeah. Yeah, I had forgot that they're already stablecoins are already a top.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. If you add all the stablecoin companies together, like Circle, Tether, I think they're a top 10 buyer in U.S. debt. Okay, I got Grok to just summarize kind of what you're talking about here in like one sentence. It says the Trump administration is quietly trying to take control of money creation away from big banks and the Federal Reserve and give it back to the U.S. Treasury using stablecoins and Bitcoin as a reserve. JP Morgan and Wall Street are fighting back hard by suppressing Bitcoin price and attacking companies like MicroStrategy. That helps move money into Bitcoin. And then this is like the battleground that they're fighting now. So I just wanted to see what AI was going to say there.
Did you get Grok to summarize that article?
Yeah, I did. I threw that article in. It's a good article. If it's Maryland Hoddle on Twitter, if anyone wants to check it out. But okay, Nano Banana. So the progression in AI is just insane. Nano Banana image gen is like the best AI image gen by far.
Ever.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We threw in the transcript of your recent economic update. Asked Nano Banana to create like an infographic and like a whiteboard style graphic, and both were crazy. Like the level of detail in the images and the text in the infographic were insane.
To me, it's unbelievable.
It's crazy. So anyone who hasn't checked that out, you should go check it out because it's really good. And it just feels like every week now in AI, it's just, there's more progress. Everything's happening faster. And if you're not paying attention to it, you're completely missing it because everything's moving so fast.
How did you make that illustration? You took an hour talk that I gave, and you asked it to summarize the talk.
Yeah, I took the transcript of your talk and then I threw it into Nano Banana on Gemini, and I asked it to create an infographic, but then it said the transcript was too long because it was like over an hour talk. So then I put it back into Gemini, asked it to shorten this and create a prompt for Nano Banana so it can create an image, and then I copied and pasted that answer and put it back into Nano Banana, and then it made the image.
So good. I'm blown away. And then we asked to turn it into a short little video, made an 8-10 second video out of it.
Which was decent.
Yeah.
Compared to where things were just like 6 months ago, it's crazy. But okay, I kind of want to get into how you're thinking about GDP. Like GDP is kind of a dying system. It was created in the Industrial Revolution. And now as labor and intelligence is done by less humans, how is this going to change over the next couple of years, and what's that formula that you were talking about? I have it written down here too, so I guess I can start off by saying GDP is transitioning to the new system. The new system that you like to talk about is it's compute, intelligence, and proof, I believe is...
Energy, intelligence, and proof, yeah.
Okay, so can you explain your thinking there?
Yeah, so I guess what's happening is we're seeing the biggest trends emerge in the economy that I think will be definitive of my entire lifetime. So I was born in the 70s. I'm a Gen Xer. And I grew up through that era where in the late 1980s and the 90s, you saw computers come out. And then after that was obviously a big trend. And then after the computers came out, the computers got connected together through the internet. And that was another huge trend that I saw. And then the computers started leaving the desktop and they all went mobile. And everybody started carrying around the computers in their pockets. And that was another big trend. And you kind of saw that all kind of still worked in the old GDP system. So all those big trends kind of worked in this GDP system that was heavily influenced by labor, like you said, productivity, and capital or new debt growth. Those are the three factors. If you had more labor, if you had more people investing in productive things, factories that would create more stuff, and you increased the debt in that system, everything grew. And now, after I guess what would it be, like 40 years of the computers coming out and getting connected and then going mobile and everything going on the internet, those big trends working in that old system is completely breaking. And there's a new system that's going to emerge, that is emerging. It's not going to, it's emerging right now. And that new system is a combination of energy. Energy is going to be the big talk over the next 10 years, probably the rest of my lifetime, but definitely over the next 10, 15 years. Intelligence, and then proof, meaning that you don't trust any institution. You don't trust anyone for your money, for your capital, for your debt, for your signatures, for your media. Everything has to be proven. So you verify everything, and you can verify everything yourself. Those, to me, are the three big factors that are going to play out. And the reason I get so excited about that, and I get so excited about Bitcoin, is that I've never seen something that I can own personally for myself or my family that is touching on all of those trends that look like they are accelerating over the next 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years in a massive way. We can go into,
Okay, so let's start on energy. Just break energy down.
Okay.
I guess for people that don't understand, you're saying energy is going to be in demand just because the amount of data centers that are coming online and the amount of demand for energy to power all this AI infrastructure that is taking over the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we look back the last 20 to 10, 20, 30 years, you had companies like countries like Germany literally destroying their nuclear reactors. Like we've gone through a phase where people kind of laughed at energy and didn't really place value to it, to immediately from them doing that. I think they did that like 3 years ago, from this weird window of 3 years to everyone thinking, oh my God, we need more energy, where the US Army is now going to put small nuclear reactors on a whole bunch of their bases that they need so much energy. So we've gone from a world
Wild.
Yeah. So, a lot of this is coming from the need for these data centers that are being built to run all the intelligence, our second factor, that is powering the new economy. So you're going to have this demand for energy. Like what you just did on Nano Banano, I know it's called Nano Banana, but Nano Banano, what you just did there, the amount of energy that is required to do that is quite large.
It is.
And it's only going to increase. The video that you and I tried to make off your illustration was capped at 8 seconds. What happens when that gets opened up? And part of the reason that this stuff isn't opened up is there a lack of computing power still.
I mean, it's capped at 8 seconds because they don't have the compute to allow the whole world to make longer videos.
Yeah, the compute and the extra compute they need to allow the longer videos is energy is required to power all that compute. So energy to me is going to be this big new thing. And where Bitcoin fits into that is that if you build a data center in the middle of the US somewhere, the AI demand for that data center isn't even 24/7. And when it's not, when your computers aren't serving the AI needs, when you're not getting paid to do some AI type work, Bitcoin can be mined instead of that.
So yeah, it's the buyer of last resort.
The buyer of last resort. So now we have this.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I'm not an energy expert, but the kind of little bit that I do understand is that when you have an energy center of any sort, doesn't matter if it's hydroelectric or nuclear
Wind,
or whatever, doesn't
solar,
doesn't matter. Yeah, once the energy is being created and it feeds into an electrical grid, if that grid doesn't have enough demand for the quantity of energy that's being produced, that extra energy has to be just wasted. There's no purpose for the energy. You can't just stuff the grid with extra energy. It's not like some sort of battery.
So they're not making money because there's no demand for their energy.
Yes.
And then they're still paying for their machines to be turned on, their ASICs or Nvidia machines, whatever they're using.
And maybe the warehouse, the capital expenditure just to build the whole data center itself, the roof, the plant, if it's a nuclear reactor, the whole system itself, like not
so
just
there's periods of time where there's not enough demand for their energy and they're not getting paid, but they still have all this overhead.
Exactly.
And this is where Bitcoin comes in, where it's the energy buyer of last resort.
So they can turn all those computers that aren't doing AI work to go mine Bitcoin. And if they win one of the block rewards that is one every 10 minutes, they get themselves some Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a lot of value. And now they can use and leverage what they've built. Instead of selling the energy to these AI companies, they can use the data center to mine Bitcoin and profit that way.
And I guess
what that allows, just for 1 second, what that allows is you've never had the ability to produce such big energy. You've never been able to produce a lot of big energy centers because you've always had to gauge your demand and saying like, okay, we'll only build an energy source like a nuclear reactor this big because we're scared that there's not enough demand for the energy So we can't build it bigger. But now you can build these big energy sources, these big nuclear reactors, these big sources of energy, because you're less scared of losing the energy, because you can mine Bitcoin if it's not used, if you don't have enough buyers for the energy that you're creating. This is a massive change in the way energy...
And if your energy is cheap enough, you're still profitable.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a massive change in the amount of energy that's going to come online over the next 10 years.
And I
so
think
when Elon Musk talks about a world of abundance, what he's talking about is that we're going to make so much energy that you're going to have it easily available to you. We're going to put freaking data centers in space and get solar power to power some of these things, because the energy up there is even cheaper. So energy is a big trend that's going to be in high demand and eventually could possibly become abundant.
Totally. And I think some of the Bitcoin miners were in the best position to actually capitalize on the demand for AI compute, because they already had the buildings, the land, the infrastructure mining Bitcoin. And now the demand for AI has come strong over the last like 3-4 years. I guess specifically the last 2 years. And now you've had companies like these mining companies able to also use some of their compute to mine, or to point their compute towards AI, and become even more profitable that way. And I guess the amount of compute coming online, I think based on what you were saying in the economic update, maybe I'm wrong, is going to double in like 2030 or in the 2030s.
Yeah, there was that chart. I think it was like a triple,
which is insane. So even if some of these AI companies are pointing their compute, or some of these mining companies are pointing their compute to AI, there's so much demand for compute and so many more data centers coming online. And if Bitcoin's the buyer for last resort, it's just going to make the network stronger and more demand for Bitcoin itself.
Yeah, and that's the second thing in this new GDP equation that I've been talking about. We talked about energy, but just what you're talking about is the intelligence. The second point in that new GDP kind of formula that I'm talking about is that intelligence is going to become abundant. Like when you can go to Gemini, I mean, I used Gemini, this week to ask some medical information that I was kind of looking at, and I was able to get great responses. I mean, I'm not sure it's 100% accurate at this point, but I was able to get some great insights into some medical information. Like intelligence is going to become abundant. And if we're in this path where you have like energy and intelligence being the big new trends, the reason I get so excited about Bitcoin, like I mentioned, is that Bitcoin is one of the few things that has proven scarcity. So in a world where you have all these things being built, we haven't even discussed about how labor, when humanoids come on, and Elon keeps talking about how humanoids are basically going to create abundance.
Mr. Beast just had a video that I haven't watched yet that came out yesterday with all these humanoids. I gotta watch it.
I watched it because you mentioned it. I watched it. It was pretty good. It was funny. Yeah. But these humanoids, when they come online in the next, between today and 10 years, you're just going to have like thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Well, robo-taxis taking away taxi jobs, Uber jobs, trucking jobs.
So I guess the big thing to try to get everyone to pay attention to is that you just have all of these things that are going to change the economy in the next 10 years. And Bitcoin is one of the few things that you can own that touch on the energy story, that touch on the intelligence story, that kind of work with all.
You get to ride this big trend.
It's one of the few ways to me, like the everyday kind of Joe Blow gets to like ride all these trends. You buy Bitcoin. Imagine I could go to the central banking system, and I could say to you, hey, Aiden, do you want to own a piece of the SWIFT system? The system that's all the money in the world, where that it moves all around the world. Do you want to own part of that system? You would probably say, yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Probably. Most people probably don't know what it is, but they would probably say yes.
Yeah, but it's the banking network that controls all the big money movements around the world. But you and I could never own it.
Totally.
But now there's a monetary network that's being developed that has an asset tied to it. And it's secure, open, permissionless, and you can own a piece of it. And I think most people are just kind of dismissing it like, I don't know.
Well, and just to break it down simply, I think like the three catalysts for Bitcoin going forward, in my opinion, are one, like Bitcoin has a moat. It's scarce and it can't be disrupted, unlike all these software companies like Adobe and all these software companies in the US that can be replaced instantly by AI. So you have a moat. I think Jordy Visser was talking about the average lifespan of an S&P 500 company is down to like, I don't know if it was 10 or 12 years, and it used to be 20. And I think the lifespan of these companies is just going to continue to shrink as AI is disrupting all their moats. as it can do everything instantly and for free.
Our economy is built so much on expert advice. The North American Western economy is a huge service-based economy, and a lot of that service isn't the blue-collar type of service, which is probably going to be the most valuable type of thing left. But a lot of it is around expert advice that comes through just intelligence. You go to school, you study something, whether it's accounting, medical, legal, whatever it is. But now with AI, how do you protect that expert advice from being changed into abundantly available instantly 24/7?
Totally, just how like information became available through the internet. Now it's like labor and intelligence itself.
Yes, the first thing will be the intelligence, and the labor might come next with humanoids a little further, but intelligence is being disrupted in real time. Like, right, it's not coming in 2 years. It's like here right now today. And then a lot of people kind of will look at this and say, well, Tom, I don't really understand when Elon talks about abundance and things getting cheaper for people. I don't really see the groceries getting cheaper at the grocery store. Like, it's really not happening. And I guess the answer to that is that it doesn't happen evenly. Where deflation is hitting right now is incomes. Incomes for what, you know how many business owners I talk to that are not really going to hire the next job because they're not sure if AI can handle that job instead of them hiring a human for it. So now you don't have an income being hired at all. And for any incomes that do exist, there is now upward pressure on the salary of that income because a lot of these businesses have to compete against AI to stay profitable. So how can you pay humans more and more money?
Yeah, and you see it in the employment numbers for
and you're starting,
new grads coming out of school. It's just more difficult for them to find jobs.
So the deflationary forces are hitting hard right now. And unfortunately, the first thing being hit isn't income. I'd wish it was steaks because I want to eat more steak for less price. But it's not. It looks like it's around the area of expert advice.
Yeah, totally. So you have Bitcoin has its mode. It can't be disrupted by AI. Then you have Bitcoin as, a scarce asset like we were talking about earlier, and how the deflationary gains from AI flow to people that hold Bitcoin. When you're holding Bitcoin, everything gets cheaper around you over time. Can you explain that? A little bit of Jeff Booth's thesis? I know it's hard to explain.
I guess
quickly.
It's the easiest way to explain it is that in an economy where everything is going to get more abundant because of these trends that we've been talking around energy intelligence, to hold purchasing power, your savings in your life, you want to put it into something scarce. And throughout history, that's been gold for like thousands of years. And then for like the last 100 and some odd years, a lot of people bought like US dollars. That was like the best currency to kind of hold. And then people started cluing in to that the US dollar loses value. So they started then moving their savings from the US dollar to things like real estate or equities and things like that. But ultimately, if you could just have a form of money that was finite, that couldn't be expanded, you couldn't produce more of it. It was a finite, scarce form of money, kind of like gold was, but even more scarce. If you could just store your life savings in that form of money, Bitcoin, as the world produces more things around you and your money is scarce, but things around you get more and more abundant, the value of your scarce money goes up. Because there's more and more things around you. So your scarce money buys more and more units of those things because everyone's chasing scarcity. There might become a time, I know Elon's talking about there might not be a need for money at some points, and a few other people talk about that. I think we're some distance from that.
Agreed.
But in the meantime is that if all of this stuff is being produced abundantly, you're going to be able to get like a robo-taxi soon. I mean, I know they're testing them in Austin, and what cost for a $20 Uber is now like $4 or $5 because there's no driver in the, in the robotaxi. There's all these abundant things available, like a taxi ride in that example. Where can you put your savings? You want to put your savings in something that's finite, that can't be duplicated and created, and the supply can't be expanded.
And I guess these efficiency gains caused by AI, the deflation caused by AI, is actually going to have to be offset by money printing because the governments can't have their dollars worth more because it'll make it more difficult to pay back their debt. Like the value of our dollars can't go up because then they will default on their debt and it will become impossible to pay. So they're going to have to print the difference between the deflationary downwards pressures. They're going to have to print the difference to be able to pay off their debt.
Yeah, and if we just take it, what you said there is really important, is that you can't have the value of, let's say, the American dollar or Canadian dollar go up. So what does that mean? How would it go up? Well, if you had all these Canadian dollars floating around the economy, for the value of the Canadian dollars to go up, you would have to take some of them away. So the ones that remain have more value. And you can't do that in a debt-based monetary system, because if you were to take some of the dollars that are in the economy away, so the rest of the dollar value went up, the debts that are in the system didn't magically disappear. So now you have less dollars and likely not enough dollars to pay for all the outstanding debt. And that's what people mean when they say you can't have the value of the dollar go up. You can't have the value of the dollar go up because it means there won't be enough dollars around to pay for all the outstanding debt. And therefore, the whole system collapses.
So they're forced to print more money and devalue the dollar.
They have to, because the debt that comes into the system with every new dollar that is created comes into the system with interest. And I like breaking it down like this really simply. If you rewind to the very first dollar that came into the Canadian or American economy, the very first dollar that came into the system, and it didn't quite work like this, but this is one simple way to think of it. It came into the system with interest owing. So the first dollar that came into the system, you had to be paid back to the central bank with interest. So if there was $1 and the interest rate was 10%, $1.10 was owed back to the central bank. But if there's only $1 that exists in the entire economy at the beginning, how do you pay back $1.10? The only way to pay back $1.10 is to borrow more money. So then you borrow more money, you borrow another dollar, but now you have $2 in the economy, but $2.20 is owed. So what do? You have to go borrow more money to try to pay back the $2.20. You just can't pay back all the debt in a debt-based money system. You can't have it. So the dollars have to keep being printed to try to keep this Ponzi-based system alive. It's unfortunate, but that's why everybody's groceries go up, rent goes up, property prices go up, and then everybody argues in their own little industry about everything. You'll find economists who focus on food arguing about food prices. And then you'll find people in the real estate market arguing about real estate prices. But those are just a second order effect or a symptom of the base layer of the system that is designed to devalue the currency. The effect is the price of scarcer things like beef or real estate go quote unquote up in dollar price. They're not changing at all. It's the value of the dollars that are decreasing as more and more are being printed to satisfy the debt requirements of the system.
Yeah,
I hope
totally.
that's kind of clear.
It is.
Definitely confusing.
It's a good way to look at it. So, no, I just think, so the three catalysts for Bitcoin and AI, it's just Bitcoin has a moat. It can't be disrupted. Instead of trying to pick a stock or a company that's going to do well, you don't know if it's going to be disrupted or not by AI. You can just hold Bitcoin because it has a moat and it won't be disrupted. Then you have holding Bitcoin gives you these deflationary gains when you're holding scarce money like Bitcoin. So you're riding the wave of just all these energy or all these AI advancements, and you actually get to see them when pricing your life in Bitcoin. And then it's just riding this massive energy wave as more and more data centers come online. The buyer of last resort is Bitcoin. So the demand for mining Bitcoin and having Bitcoin itself is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. People are going to compete for it. Nations are going to compete for it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it's our opinion or my opinion. Who knows if that's 100%.
Well, it does feel like just AI itself is a global arms race. Like it's not just the companies in the US, like Google, Amazon, Elon with XAI, Sam Altman with OpenAI. It doesn't feel like it's just them fighting for it. It feels like it's a national importance for like security that they all want, like China, Russia, the US all want to be first to AGI or just the best AI models possible for their own defense.
Absolutely. It's going to be a bumpy ride over the next few years. And especially when you have an older banking system trying to hold on to all of this power through all this AI change, it's going to be wild. Like I think the swings, we started talking about the volatility in the price of Bitcoin. I think that's just going to be something that continues. It'll shoot up
continues
and down.
To the upside more so. I think so.
Yeah, exactly. Up and to the right overall, but bumpy along the way.
Yeah, totally. Agreed. So then what do you think? Will we have a prolonged bear market or will we see new all-time highs in 2026? What are your thinkings there?
I just don't think we do. If maybe
think we do what?
I don't think we have a prolonged bear market at this moment, because I just think if you look through Bitcoin's history, it seems to follow what a bunch of different analysts outline are the business cycle and liquidity cycle. And the liquidity cycle was delayed about a year, it seems, because a lot of the US debt kind of got pushed an extra year out to be needing to be refinanced. And so that all happens kind of right now for the next year. So I feel like the liquidity that's going to enter the market over the next year to refinance like $9 trillion of US debt is just about to enter. It doesn't feel to me that Bitcoin tops out here and goes into a bear market for an extended period of time. I think the fun is right in front of us.
Agreed, especially with midterms around the corner. Trump's going to try to do everything he can to juice markets, I think.
I think so too. I mean, it's a hard, who knows?
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Aiden.
See ya.